Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our webinar today. Today is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, and I am Katrina Toyer, Brand Manager at Canadian Fertility Consulting, and I'm happy to be here with our speakers today. We have Leia Swanberg, Founder and CEO of Canadian Fertility Consulting, Embry, Surrogacy and Fertility Lawyers of Carbert Waite, and we are going to be talking about newborn insurance with Virginia Hart of Art Risk Solutions. We are encouraging everyone on this webinar today to please ask questions if you have them. There is a Go To Webinar Questions button where you can type in your questions for any of our speakers. Please send them in as soon as you have one, and we will answer at the very end. And last but not least, we have been working on keeping up to date on our current information, and we would like you to be aware that the information discussed on this webinar is accurate as of today, September 8th, 2020. We ask that all participants watching today should still speak to their lawyer regarding the information provided on this webinar. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. And please be aware that CEO and founder of Canadian Fertility Consulting, Leia Swanberg, is having webcam difficulties, so today she will only be on audio. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Insurance is often an overwhelming topic, and I hope today we can dispel some of the myths and misinformation that seems to float around on the internet, and that we can really reassure you of the amazing products, the partnerships that lawyers in Canada, as well as myself and other agencies have built with Virginia and her organization that represents several insurance policies and packages that really are available to all people who are accessing surrogacy in Canada. And so I'd like to give just a brief overview, and then I have some questions for Virginia, and then I'm sure she'll go into some further details on that as well. And so I really want to talk about the history of surrogacy within Canada and why insurance is required in a country such as ours that has social medicine. And myself as a Canadian, I don't pay for health insurance. So why should you pay for health insurance? And so it's really quite simple. If I were traveling overseas, if I was traveling in the US and were hurt or injured and required medical care, I would have to pay for that. And so we as Canadians really feel strongly, and the government has spoken on it and required us to feel strongly, that if you are to have a child here, although your child is a Canadian citizen at birth, that they do not meet the residency requirement, and therefore their medical bills need to be paid for by you as their parents. And so I would say about 5 years ago, Ellen, who's on this webinar, and I had a case in which babies came quite early, and you know, it was previous to insurance being required, and these intended parents were presented with a bill that was, you know, much more than $1 million. And Ellen and I were, you know, quite taken back and thought, wow, okay, insurance would be a good idea. So we started looking and started searching, and you know, began to find policies that maybe didn't quite make sense. And you know, fast forward to a climate now in Canada in which, you know, our belief as an industry is that any surrogacy agency that you would engage with as intended parents would have you covered. They would make an introduction. They would have a requirement that you have researched your insurance policy and provide proof that your policy covers your future child. As you're also researching surrogacy in Canada and speaking with fertility clinics, that the clinic you would engage with would also have this requirement. And the requirement is important. The requirement is important because it lets you know that these organizations are not just thinking about you, that they are thinking about the health and welfare and well-being of your child. They are thinking of your future as parents, your ability to purchase diapers, and that you can, take care of your baby when they are born. That this agency and this clinic and these other professionals that you engage with respect that your surrogate is not willing to provide information that is untrue in order to ensure your baby is covered by her social health insurance. And those pieces are so important that, within CFC, we require proof, and the clinics that we do work with require proof as well. And so in this searching, Ellen and I and other lawyers and, the industry, stumbled across Virginia's organization, who, as I mentioned, had policies for everyone. So Virginia, I have a few questions that people have sent me ahead of time I'd love to ask you.
Sure.
And so my first question is, when people are interested in surrogacy in Canada, when should they talk to you, and how much lead time do you need to make insurance possible for them?
Sure. So honestly, we recommend that they talk to us almost at matching. And the reason is that we want them to understand that this is part of the process and part of the cost, and be able to build that in and not have that level of expectation really from day one. Plus, then they understand the timing, because the timing of when you buy that policy is very, very important. With one of the carriers, and it's actually the best carrier and the one that we highly recommend, you have to apply for the coverage at least 2, if not 3 months prior to transfer. So you need to know going in what your timeline looks like. So that's why we actually say, come talk to us at match, because this is part of your timeline and part of the process.
Virginia, can I ask you a question, which I think that lots of people ask, which is, well, if I apply 2 or 3 months and the transfer is not successful, doesn't that mean I'm likely to have to pay 2 years of insurance coverage? What's your answer and why?
Yes, that does mean that you, in all likelihood, are going to have to pay 2 years of insurance coverage. But 2 years of coverage with Allianz is less expensive than 45 or 60 days with any of the other insurance carriers that are available. Plus, it means that you have the coverage. Other carriers, they're going to underwrite the surrogate, and they have the right to say, no, we don't want her, because they don't underwrite until the 20th week of pregnancy. So even though you may have to pay 2 years of insurance, it's still less expensive for quadruple the amount of cover. Additionally, with Allianz, it's written in the name of an intended parent. So that intended parent actually has travel insurance. So that if they're in Canada and they get sick, or they live in France and they're in England or Germany or wherever else, they actually have cover in all those countries. It's international travel insurance.
And Leia, I think just to clarify, sometimes I get questions like, what does underwriting mean? So basically, my understanding, and of course you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you purchase the Allianz policy, one of the parents is buying a policy for themselves, which will also cover the baby if necessary at birth. Whereas with the other policies, the more expensive ones, they are looking at the surrogate's medical history, and you don't have to provide the surrogate's medical history with Allianz.
Correct. Allianz is written to the intended parent, and the others are written based on the surrogate.
And Virginia, with Allianz, which is, for those of you who are listening or watching this webinar, I will say that, 95% of our clients, or probably even more, go with Allianz. It's the least expensive, the easiest to manage, from our perspective, and they've done a great job for our clients. But Virginia, could you touch on who qualifies, who doesn't, and what you can do for those people that Allianz isn't a fit for?
Sure. So Allianz does underwrite based on the intended parent. So if it is a couple, we say always have the youngest and the healthiest apply, because two things are going to happen. The premiums will be lower if you go with the younger person because it's based on age, and then it's also based on health. So Allianz, when you apply, you're going to complete a health questionnaire. And if there's nothing untoward in that health questionnaire, they'll just go ahead and say, great, we're going to give you a policy. If they have questions, then they're going to say, can you please explain why you had surgery 3 years ago on your back? And you're going to have to explain that. So then Allianz will come back and do one of two things. They're going to say, we will give you cover, but we're going to exclude anything that has to do with your back. So we're not going to pay for that, which probably isn't a big issue. Or they're going to say, we'll give you cover and we're going to raise your premium. Or they'll say, we won't give you cover at all because we feel this is too large of a risk for us. The one thing that they absolutely will not give cover for is if somebody is HIV positive. So if you have a couple where one person is HIV positive and another person is not HIV positive, then obviously the person who is HIV negative should be applying for the insurance. If both are HIV positive, then you don't even want to waste your time on Allianz because we know they're going to say no. And at that point in time, then we'd look to either the Great Morning, which is now Giban. Giban changed their name to Great Morning, or the Universal Plan, and they would just underwrite based on your surrogate.
Can I just clarify one issue? And I get this question a lot from my clients, which is, does it have to be in the case of a same-sex couple, or if they're using an egg donor, does it have to be the genetically related parent who is the applicant for the insurance?
It is my understanding from Allianz that no, it does not need to be the genetically related parent, that either parent can apply. Because if they are married, it's an assumption that they're parenting the child together, that they are parents of that child.
Excellent. So Virginia, I guess the follow-up question to that is, we have clients that come to Canada from all over the world. Many of you who are watching today, we noticed, some of you are from China and Japan and Israel, France, Spain, Australia. Can you talk about what countries Allianz, because it is, again, for more than 95% of you, Allianz will be the insurance of choice. Can you talk about who qualifies based on country and who doesn't?
Sure. So Allianz will not write insurance if you live in China, Australia, the US, Ireland, or Switzerland. So if you live in any of those countries, Allianz will not write insurance for you. However, if you have an address that you can use outside of those countries, so for example, you live in Australia and you have a vacation home in New Zealand, or your mother lives in Great Britain, you can use that address. They also will allow the surrogate's address to be used in Canada. So that's the other option. We get asked the question all the time, is that not insurance fraud? Because I really don't live there. And I have to say that it's a question I myself have asked Allianz. We probably every 2 months, we do a double check with Allianz. Is this still good? Is this still good? Do you have a problem with it? And every time we ask, we're told it's not a problem. Yes, you can use that address. So that is how we get around that.
Leah, I don't know if it's the right time, but it may be worthwhile we'd sort of jumped into what insurance is, but maybe it might make sense to talk a little bit about the risks and why we recommend it, because of the actual costs of what you are going to look for your child's health care in Canada. And so I can jump in on that if that would be appropriate.
Absolutely, Ellen, that would be great. And before you do, I really want intended parents, you who are listening, who may be engaged in a journey and haven't.
Oh, I think we just lost Leah.
and who are looking at
So
is to you. It's really important that you understand this information. So if there's anything you take away, please, you know, jot down these numbers because Ellen is going to sort of explain what we see in terms of cost.
So the way that I always explain this in very simple terms is that in Canada, 100% of your surrogate's medical insurance is covered by the Canadian government. What that means is if she has a C-section, if she's in hospital, if she becomes very, very ill as a result of carrying your baby, there are no costs associated with her medical care. Your baby, on the other hand, does not meet the legal criteria to have the Canadian taxpayer pay for your baby's health care. And when Leia said at the beginning that she doesn't pay for health care, she's actually wrong, because we pay taxes, and the taxes are what covers our hospitals and baby's health care. If your baby is healthy and it is a normal baby and it is born at 2 o'clock in the morning, normally it will be discharged within about 12 to 15 hours, so it will be discharged the next afternoon, and the baby's healthcare costs will be a total of about $2,500 Canadian. It is very, very low. Okay, that is not what you are buying insurance for. That is an expected cost. That is the cost of the doctors to check your baby, the nurses to check your baby, to give you a lesson on changing diapers in the hospital, and to send you home with your baby, your healthy baby. The real risk, and where we see the massive bills, is if the baby ends up in the incubators. Those are the incubators that are used if baby is a little bit premature, baby comes at 30 weeks instead of 38. Baby has some trouble breathing, baby has yellow skin, which is called jaundice. Those types of things are what puts the baby in the incubator. When the baby is in the incubator, they have 24-hour care. They have doctors and nurses monitoring them within minutes for 24 hours. And the cost, the bill to you for that level of care is going to be something in the range of $17,000 per 24 hours. So it basically works out to about $650 an hour. And you don't control how long your baby's in the NICU for. If the baby gets put in the NICU, the doctor will say, for safety purposes, we want to keep baby in for 3, 4, 5 days. That is a $100,000 bill. That is why you're buying the insurance. And Virginia can tell you what those premiums cover, because by paying what is roughly about $4,000 US for the insurance, you're buying $2 million of care. You're buying the peace of mind to know that if your baby is in the incubators, all you have to do is look after your child. You don't have to be petrified that somebody's going to walk into your hospital room and hand you a bill for the care. Virginia, do you want to add anything?
Sorry, Ellen, I just wanted to add something quickly on that, or to ask Virginia to clarify, because it brings up a question that we get all the time. Does this, so it's a two-parter, does this Allianz insurance cover for that one night stay as Ellen just described? And then second, actually, I'll let you answer that one first.
No, it does not. That is considered well baby, and Allianz will only cover sick baby. So baby is in the NICU, baby gets out of the hospital, but then develops a fever and needs to go back to the hospital. So anytime the baby is being seen for an illness or fevers, etc., Allianz will cover. They're not going to cover that first 12 to 15 hours when the baby was born perfectly healthy and goes home. That is not what the insurance is for. The insurance
Go ahead.
Now, I said the insurance is really to cover those catastrophic expenses that can happen at $17,000 a day, should there be a need for it.
So the question from this person is, if my baby is born well, do I need to add them to my policy? And if my baby becomes unwell on day 4, can I add them, or do I need to add them when they're born?
No, that's actually an excellent question. So if your baby is born healthy, no, you do not need to add baby to the plan. With Allianz, you have 30 days to add the baby to the plan. in which they will not underwrite. So in other words, no matter what happens within that first 30 days, you have 30 days to add the baby to the plan, and it will go back to the date of birth, okay? If you apply on the 31st day, Allianz is going to say, let's talk about the medical history of your baby. So you want to make sure, so baby gets out of the hospital perfectly healthy, everything is great. Day 4, it has an issue and needs to go back to the hospital. Then you're going to immediately call Allianz and add the baby to the plan. And if you add the baby to the plan and it is in the hospital, it is the intended parent's responsibility to keep Allianz informed as to what is happening with the baby. So the baby is in the NICU, in incubator. They anticipate it's going to be there 5 to 7 days or whatever it may be. And so because some procedures and services need to be pre-authorized by Allianz. They want to know what's happening. They want to be able to say, yes, we approve this care. So it's very important that the intended parent keep in contact with Allianz, and they have emails and phones and every way else you can contact them, and not leave it up to the hospital, because a hospital may not contact them. And
the hospital will not contact them. The Canadian hospitals will not do it. And so that's important to know.
Right.
Excellent. And Virginia, my last question that I have, and Ellen, then if you want to speak, or if Katrina has questions from the people watching at home, you know, the next question I have is, I'm just going to kind of read it out. We're intended parents. We didn't purchase insurance. Our baby is coming soon. Can you still help us if we get a bill?
So yes, potentially we can negotiate rates, but again, that's up to the Canadian hospital system and up to each individual hospital in the province. They can say, yes, we'll give you a discount because we want to get the bill settled and we want you out, or they could say, no, we're not. It's totally up to the hospital. All we can do is ask. Depending upon how far you are in the pregnancy, if you're below 32 weeks, you may still be able to get a policy through Great Morning if you want to take a look at that. I'm also going to say that no one ever thinks their baby is going to be in the NICU. No one ever thinks that. We all think that we're going to have wonderfully healthy babies and that we don't need insurance. And yet over the weekend, I got a text saying, I have a client whose baby was just born at 31 weeks and is going to be in the NICU for at least 6. What can we do? And the answer was nothing, you know, because it's too late. So I really encourage people to get the insurance, because we cannot predict what will happen. You may have the most fabulous pregnancy with your surrogate and she can be ridiculously healthy, and something happened at birth that just was unseen. We didn't know. And then the baby needs it to be in the NICU.
So the other thing that I can say from a legal perspective is that when we do very occasionally see those people coming in, again, the province can do 2 things. When intended parents run away on bills, and I use that deliberately, when they choose not to deal with the bills, we do often see the bills being sent to the surrogates. Okay, so I've seen surrogates receive $30,000 or $40,000 bills, which is a tremendously stressful thing for them. It can obviously impact their credit rating. The intended parents have a legal agreement which specifically says they are responsible for their baby's healthcare costs. Every single agreement says that. And in most jurisdictions, the province will have 2 years to decide whether or not they're going to come after the intended parent, and that creates an incredible level of stress. And so sometimes I get asked, well, is it realistic that they come back after me in a foreign country? They've got 2 years to file a lawsuit against you in Canada. They can serve that on you in a foreign jurisdiction. Whether it's enforceable or not is a different question. But really what could come out of that is that the governments could say, if we have enough really substantial bills that people are choosing not to pay, we're going to crack down on allowing internationals to come to Canada for surrogacy. And so this is about protecting the surrogate, ensuring that she's protected, that she's not going to be left with a bill. It's about respecting the fact that you're coming to a country which has a wonderful healthcare system and really wants you here and is open to surrogacy, but it's about paying that premium to make sure that you can walk into that hospital and say, here's my insurance policy. If my baby is in the NICU, I'm covered. I'm not expecting Canadians to cover this. Thank you so much for the opportunity of letting us come here and have a child here. And so it's the right thing to do, and a few bad apples could toss the cart. And so we want to make sure that everybody has that information and is looking after themselves and protecting themselves and protecting the ability to continue to come to Canada to do this.
And I would like to add one other piece. You know, I know we've got a few surrogates who are watching this webinar, and I really want to assure you that agencies are not only doing this webinar, or myself anyways, I'm not doing this webinar only to protect intended parents, as Ellen mentioned. You know, surrogates with intended parents who haven't been educated around insurance and haven't purchased insurance are at risk. And so, you know, surrogates listening, you know, really do your homework with agencies that you may be interviewing to ensure that they require this of intended parents. And intended parents who are listening know that surrogates who are doing this amazing, you know, thing for you by you know, being your surrogate, that they are asking the questions, and they have as many questions as agencies do, as Ellen does, as Virginia does. You know, they are coming to this process, and being protected is important, and their family being protected is important. And so in order to be very attractive during the selection process, you know, having your agency know that you do have insurance, you are purchasing insurance, insurance is important to you, whether that's through our agency or others, really will, you know, have you selected faster. You having the information, you having your policy in place, you know, very early on is so vital to the success of your journey. So, you know, I really wanted to sort of end on that note. And Katrina, I don't know if we have questions from participants, or if there's anything else, Virginia, you or Ellen wanted to touch upon.
You know, I just want to basically just let people know that when Ellen says this could all happen if we have a few bad apples, it truly can. There are hospitals in the US that don't want to see surrogates. There are hospitals that have initiated collection agencies and collections. There's international collection agencies to go after the intended parents in their own country. Their passports are being blocked because they have a significant debt in the US. So I have no clue with the Canadian government, what actions they will take, but there are, it's not just an, oh, well, and let's run out of town on the bill. It really can get very serious. So, you know, again, the cost is so, in the scope of an entire journey, the cost is just so insignificant that not to have that protection is really just irresponsible. And as Leia said in the beginning, to be able to pay for diapers, to buy the extra car seat, to, you know, it truly, you know, is $5,000 to $6,000, even if you have to do it for 2 years. So it's really something that I think not to get that insurance so that you are protected and that your baby gets the health care that it needs is important. So on that note, Ellen, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, the story that I tell is last fall, I had a surrogate who I believe was about 29 weeks pregnant. She was driving her car. She was 29 weeks pregnant, and she, while physically driving her car, gave birth suddenly, spontaneously. There were helicopters. There was a NICU team, or there were helicopters to get the baby to the specialized hospital. There were ambulances. There was a team of 6 or 8 specialized doctors that came from Calgary, which is the big city near us, to the small town where this had happened. The intended parents were in France. They got on a plane. We were managing the whole process. The total bill was well in excess of about $1.7 million. And Allianz was fantastic. They were absolutely incredible. They managed everything. And those parents, I think, have been talking about it and saying how grateful they are that they had listened, they had bought the insurance, because these things can happen. And they are home now with a baby who, notwithstanding prematurity, is healthy. When the doctors come in to save your child's life, you're really grateful. And it is a hard conversation to have with them to say, yeah, we chose not to buy insurance because we just didn't feel like spending the money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ellen, Ellen and I shared that client, and the surrogate was so grateful that insurance was in place and that she could focus on her relationship with the intended parents as she was healing and as the baby was healing. And our role is to ensure that people know how to take good care of their surrogate, and taking good care of your surrogate means putting in place everything possible to ensure the safety and health of the baby coming, so that she can focus on the pregnancy and your baby. So I really appreciate, Virginia, you taking the time, and Ellen, you taking the time to talk about this really important topic that I know for myself, when I said as an organization we were going to force people, I had a lot of fertility clinics saying, you can't force people, what if it slows down business? And it's actually encouraged our business, and it's grown our business, because people have really understood how important it is, and that caring for the surrogate means putting it in place and caring for their baby. So thank you guys for all of your support, and being willing to get on the phone with any of our clients at any time to talk about this important subject. And Katrina, are there any questions that we didn't cover?
We do have one question, and it is, I understand you need to have a lawyer in the state that your baby is born in. How does this work with your law firm?
I think that it works the same. Well, I can tell you how it works with my law firm, but it typically works the same everywhere. We as lawyers tend to develop relationships with our clients. It's very normal prior to a match for me to have had several calls, meetings with a client to talk to them about insurance, to talk to them about what they want to be looking for in a surrogate in their circumstances. Once the match is made, if the surrogate lives in a province that I am not physically located in, I will do the agreement for the clients. But we always want to have a lawyer on the ground at the time of the birth, to make sure that the process is as quick and as fast as possible. The way that I personally manage this is that my partner, Rachel, and I, after the contract, we will stay involved in the whole process. We never charge anything new. The fees that you pay to get onto the birth certificate at the end will be paid to the lawyer that we've recommended or that the agency has recommended, but we always are available. So if you're having any concerns, you don't feel like it's going fast enough, we'll get on the phone and we'll manage that, and we'll do what we can to speed things up. And I think that that's the same process with lawyers across the country. You may be talking to a lawyer in Ontario and your surrogate might be in British Columbia. So your original lawyer will stay involved. If your original lawyer wants extra money to stay involved through the process, then my suggestion is you perhaps move to somebody else. But most of the lawyers that I work with, and certainly the ones who are very experienced in fertility, they will stay involved. But we will make sure you have somebody that we like and we trust and we work with on the ground at the time of the birth to get you out as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Ellen. At this time, we have no further questions.
So Leia and Virginia, thank you so much. I think that I can speak for myself, which is that this is a topic that I talk about all the time. And for any of you who have ever had a conversation with me, you will know that it's item 3 on the top 3 things that we talk about. And so I'm always happy to chat with anybody about this and the importance of insurance and why it's in place, because the health of the surrogacy industry is really dependent on it. And it is the responsible thing to do. to ensure that you, it is really scary to have a baby in the NICU, and it is really, really terrifying when you're worried about bills on top of that. So please reach out to me and Virginia and Leah, and we'll continue to talk about these things.
Absolutely.
We'll send a follow-up email with contact details for Virginia and Ellen, so that you can connect and have your questions answered. And please just know that there are no questions that are foolish or unimportant. We really want to care for you as you engage in this process, and so we are really looking forward to connecting with you and to helping you build your family in 2021. So we will talk to you soon.
Excellent.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.